Hi, Signe. Hi, dear friends. Hi, dear colleagues. Hi from our office here in Ljubljana, a bit of a rainy Ljubljana throughout the whole Europe and even the world, since Silva is in Mexico. And just a few introductory words from me too. During the last webinar, we wanted to understand the extent and the seriousness of the challenges we are facing through COVID-19 pandemic, and how us, the DMOs, are funding how our fundings is clearly multidimensional, and the whole crisis is multidimensional. After all, we are taking no longer only a global health emergency, but this is now a multidimensional crisis of economic, social, perhaps even geopolitical dimension. So I invite you again to read the DMO Finance Survey that was published a few weeks ago, and you can find it, of course, on our intranet. Today, we are still rolling out our sleeves, and we aim to provide you with relevant examples on looking at data and how they can prepare us to recover. As DMOs, we must inspire confidence and be the key player that unites our partners around a shared vision, which among other answers the question, how will a successful recovery look like for our city? And how can we prioritize our work in order to steer toward a more sustainable future? Demand for public resources are intense, while meetings, conferences, and leisure tourism will be just one of the various economic sectors seeking government support and prioritization. This makes it even more important than ever, namely to demonstrate how leisure and business tourism can contribute to the city's lasting recovery and develop in a more sustainable, community and environmental friendly way. It is also now the time to ask, how has COVID-19 changed the way of consumers approach their travel decisions? How should or how could businesses adapt to this? So reputation, satisfaction, and sentiment are also key milestones in paving the way to recover, as Olivier will illustrate, accompanied by two of our members, London and Valencia. They will show us how this is essential to prepare us to recovery. And finally, we will reimagine the future visitor experience in Paris, as the biggest changes its DMO is planning to tackle over the next few months. So to dive into it, thank you again to all the speakers and for tremendous help to Group Now throughout all the webinars so far. And thank you for supporting us in this initiative. And now I leave the virtual or the internet floor back to you, Signe, who will moderate this session today. I mean, we will continue growing this internet community until we finally see each other in person. And until then, as always, I wish you all well, send you my best wishes and strength, and stay healthy and stay positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petra. And hi, everyone. It's great to be here again. Just a quick welcome from me as well to yet another webinar in the New Tomorrow series. For those of you who are new to the series, I'm Signe Jongersted of Group Now, and we've been very happy and honored to be working with European Cities Marketing on this whole series of multiple activities, A New Tomorrow. So as Petra was saying, last time we talked, we were talking about navigating a multidimensional crisis. And so this time we're focusing not simply on navigating, but actually steering our way through the different phases of the crisis towards recovery. And again, all the while with the use of data and strategic foresight as a key tool along the way. So I'm sure a lot of you are in the process of planning for recovery or strategizing your way to recovery. In that context, I actually wanted to share with you an idea that I read the other day in a recent report by international consultancy McKinsey, because their idea is that returning to, or heading towards recovery isn't so much about having the right or even the perfect plan, a systematic plan to execute, and then with a deadline towards stability and familiarity. But rather actually McKinsey is suggesting the idea that we think of it in a different way, that we think about it as more like a muscle that we need to exercise starting right now. And as such, return or recovery is not just a phase, it's also a way of operating. It's a continuous state of being, you could say, an ongoing and continuous process of exercising and training our muscle ability, you could say, to adapt and think ahead. And because even in these days of uncertainty, the best of plans is based upon all these things that we don't know, a lot of assumptions, and we don't know how it will happen, what will happen in terms of resurgence in case numbers or going back in lockdowns, borders reclosing, working remotely on and off for shorter and longer periods. And even in terms of the longer term changes in behavior as consumers, as travelers, as residents. So the challenge is that it requires us to think of recovery not so much as a destination that we'll arrive at a certain time, but more as an open-ended journey. And that also means a shift from these sort of, you could almost call them like temporary war rooms or task forces that we've seen or we are seeing in a lot of places, but rather than thinking of it as a temporary war room, we need to create that sort of dynamic and ongoing nerve center, much like our bodies and brains that can adapt to changes around us, learn as we go, try things out, and then learn again what works continuously and ongoingly. So we need both, of course, a fast gear that will help us adapt to the immediate changes, and a slower, more longer term gear that can help us sort of restructure according to some of the more deeper structural shifts that we will also be facing. And so there is a lot of uncertainty, of course, and the danger of that is a little bit that unless we train that muscle, we can quickly end up in this situation, which I think for many does feel a little bit like that in these pandemic and ever-changing times. And so today's topic should perhaps be more about preparing than planning for recovery. And my hope is that we can think of this as sort of our shared exercise gym today, where we have an hour's workout ahead of us and with some excellent trainers, aka speakers, who will help us through it. And we will look at what data we could use to exercise the muscle and how some destinations are already doing just that. And we will finally get the perspective, strategic perspective from Paris and how they are preparing for recovery and their ideas and hopes for the Paris that awaits in our new tomorrow. So I'll finish off with some practical notes as always. If you have any good input or any ideas that you want to share with the rest of us, you can put them in the chat. You can link if there are some new initiatives from you guys that you think all the other participants in here could perhaps find inspiration from. And also, if you have questions, please use the Q&A function, which is not for comments. And I'll keep an eye as we go, so you can put them in as speakers are presenting as well. And there's also the option of you voting up questions if you want. Just a quick note to say that we'll be doing sort of a joint Q&A after our first 3 speakers. So that will be a longer Q&A and a short one just after each speaker if necessary. And I think that's about it. We aim to finish no later than 5 minutes past 3. So that'll give us some time to go through everything. And that was it for me for now. And so instead, please welcome our very first speaker today, Olivier Henry-Biabaud, founder and CEO at TCI Research and TRAVELSAT, who will share with us some of their exclusive data on cities' e-reputations, visitor satisfaction, resident sentiment, all as focus areas for us destinations in preparing for recovery. So Olivier, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, happy ECM family. It's another pleasure for me to provide a 15 minutes update on the recovery situation at a European level, and starting with one of the regular magic questions that everybody is asking all the data company: give us your best forecast for 2021 and beyond. What will be the new normal? Will it be a new normal? And what's the numbers? And so our best estimate for next year and beyond is just this. We have absolutely no idea today. And the reason why it's just impossible to do real forecasting is just because since travel conditions are not totally clarified, since people don't know exactly where they're allowed to go, you cannot say anything about the near future. So instead of that, What we're trying to do with our clients and DMO clients is to answer very tactical, easy questions like, is my reputation still okay? Is my community still tourism supportive in this context? Are my visitors coming back, and from where? And by the way, when they come back, are they happy? Do they feel safe, particularly in terms of sanitary condition? So I will basically give you some trends on all of these questions, starting with the very important question of destinations. We know people are going to choose again destination and places they want to visit. Today they go where they can go, but tomorrow they will choose. And then the reputation will play a major role in building the trust. So all the data I'm going to show now come from social listening techniques. So basically we web crawl everything which is said in relation to travel and tourism. We look at the positive, negative, and we look at the trends. And if you look at the global picture for the European cities, e-reputation tracking from the beginning, the film is now quite interesting, because we started, if you remember, around March, we probably have known the worst tourism bashing period ever in history. So many people, many conversations, many TV reports on destinations portrayed as epicenters and tourists, super spreaders, and a lot of travel bans and disrespect between visitors and residents, tourist traps, and so on and so on. And then we have seen during the first period some positive rebound quite quickly, pushed by fans, destination fans, pushed by innovative virtual reality experiences from home, a lot of great stories about local heroes, about solidarity across the sector, many first DMOs, emotional campaigns, doing also a nice jobs of keeping the link with potential travelers, and a start of resuming of conversations about what is next on my travel bucket list. But I have to say that since early June, the score of the net sentiment, which measure the polarity between positive and conversations around travel and tourism, it's still quite doing a roller coaster type of trends. There are a lot of positive trends about all these communications on destination reopening with new COVID protocols and attractions reopening. Also, all these new residents supporting tourism, they want to have visitors back. But at the same time, we are hearing a lot of deceptive new visitor experiences, and I will come back to that after. But also, long story short, people who want to travel, they have no idea about where they can go right now, still today. And for those who have chosen to travel internationally, unfortunately, the full experience is not that brilliant. And of course, depending on who you are, some destinations are impacted more than others. Here, just for information, we have two maybe examples who are a bit extreme. One, which is Barcelona. Barcelona still have a great reputation, but they have been impacted quite recently because, of course, mostly of the sanitary conditions, where Stockholm, for example, is still a bit above the average. They had a different way of approaching, and the overall sentiment about that is maybe a bit more positive. Then one of the challenge for DMOs to deal with is not all verticals have been impacted the same way. So we've seen attractions, all the main theme parks and museums, they have recovered reputation very quickly, and they are very strong today again. We have seen other verticals like cruise, which has been very much exposed during the crisis, gradually, slowly, but gradually recovering and being relatively positive today again, while they are resuming. But still, and especially for transport-related verticals, the sentiment there and the overall reputation is still generating as many negative than positive conversations. And that is a problem for DMOs because they need to address all the steps of the visitor journey, and particularly looking at those transportation issues. Question 2, is my community still supportive? We've done a survey in 20 iconic destinations in the world, iconic cities, including in Europe, just to understand if the social conversations which were so bad during the crisis really converted into a tourism bashing in resident mind. So we have just made our classic standard resident index survey in June to understand about the situation. And there we have a series of good news, I have to say. So based on consolidated average for the 6 cities we have interviewed in Europe, you have 7 in 10 residents who said the tourism needs financial support to help local economic recovery. The level of tourism phobia, which is the share of the populations who are completely rejecting tourism, they say it's too much, we don't want to see tourism anymore, is only 6%. It is relatively stable versus pre-COVID situation. And today, 6 out of 10 residents across European cities interviewed say that their city are COVID ready to welcome visitor back. And when we look at their sentiment and their mood, they still want to give advice and tips to the visitors that they may cross. It's also positive in trends, and they would like to engage more in decisions making concerning the tourism local development. So it's a good sign. It means it's the right time to engage with your residents, and of course it's not at any conditions. First, as always, it's the same from the visitor point of view, but we are seeing a growing, let's say, interest in maybe welcoming more domestic or local visitors compared to international visitors. Still, the numbers are very high. As you can see, there's a main majority of people who want to see more or as many as before international visitors, but still 20% of residents say they would like to see less than before, and maybe they're a bit cautious because they say by the end of the year, they would like maybe part of them, 40% of them would like to see the city putting a sort of a cap of numbers to stay on the safe side. The full report is available for ECM members on the dashboard, but just another final focus on something which I believe already existed before. I mean, it's not new that they were focused on sustainability and environment, but now with this context, the residents are really focusing and expecting tourism to go back and grow, but taking a very, very good care of the environment. You see the net score of impact for cleanliness, environmental protection. When we ask people about how they define positive or negative impact of tourism, you see this is still very high on their agenda. And when they say their potential fear about crowding, about waste management, it has a very special meaning today, because the concept of crowds in COVID-19 context is not necessarily only hundreds of thousands of people in the same place. It can start with 10 people in a bar. So it's, again, the focus on sustainability existed before. It has been mostly unfazed during the crisis. I just put that slide because we had yesterday a great conversation with on another conference in the US with New York City, and I just give you a few links because this city is to me it's a nice benchmark. They are really putting New Yorkers in the heart of their destination recovery. So just take a minute and have a look on this if you can. Question 3. Are visitors coming back? Oh, it's not a small question, right? So what we do for that is using a technology, which is the mobile location data. Of course, they are not fully representative, but it's a good sensor to understand the dynamic of a rebound in terms of visitation. So for those who have been already using that on the dashboard, the ECM dashboard, we have connected actually, I think, 21 iconic attractions throughout Europe. And indeed, we have seen during summer a nice peak of visitation, something like twice as more as before summer. And what's interesting is to look at the shift in May, for example, when it was a slow start again of visitation. We saw at that time about 60% of local versus 40% of tourists. And when we focus on August visitation, then we see that shift between local visitors and tourist visitors when they represent almost 2/3 of the visitation and 25% of them coming from quite a long way, 300 kilometers and above. So yes, visitors are going back. But to me, the most important is not about the numbers now. Of course, this is important to populate restaurants, hotels, and so on, and recover economically. But in terms of reputation and attractiveness for the long term, the next question is, are they happy when they come back? Just by the way, are they happy? Do they feel safe? And then I have to say, so for doing this, we consolidate from our platform, from about 30 different platforms, rating and reviews platform, everything which is said about hotels, restaurants, attractions across the cities and across destinations. And we have set up a new sanitary safety index to understand the sentiment as per people are commenting on reviews. And unfortunately, we see that in most destinations we are tracking, there is a growing number of reviews, again, confirming that there are more people visiting your city, but there again, we see a drop of satisfaction. So it means that the more people, the more it's probably difficult to generate a full satisfying experiences with all these constraints, with all this new living together, not only between visitors and staff, but also between visitors together. And we see that trends absolutely everywhere. And one of the problems is, if you look at all the comments today and during summer, one of the key words and the key concepts commented in the reviews were all about sanitary safety, pandemic precautions, COVID mentions. So a lot, it's probably hundreds of thousands of comments mentioning this in light of the experience. And whereas in Europe, we are seeing quite a good level of positivity for the attractions, we know from other trackers that there is a particular attention to put for the accommodations and restaurants. So these trends, and when I say trend, I mean more visitors, but a bit of difficulty to live really the full experience. That's something we measure everywhere. Here you have an example of big destinations in US, a state. You see the rebound in terms of visitation, you see the drop of satisfaction, and it's associated with a higher number of COVID-19 related perception. Same here in a region in France, south of France, a peak of visitation, a drop of satisfaction. Same story there for a city in north of France, a big rebound of visitation through the number of reviews, but also a big drop of satisfaction. The good news is September, October seems to be picking up. So what it means is that what used to be over-tourism today has a different meaning, but it means that in each and every operator, sometimes the experience is not completely matching the expectations. And all these destination analytics are actually based on consolidating all operators' analytics. And I'm taking that example of the Louvre Lens. Le Louvre, which is certainly one of the most iconic and great museums in the world, have reopened. We have seen a light drop of satisfaction that is coming up since they're going in a learning curve. But you see it's generating a lot of positive comments, people saying COVID measures are well respected, but at the same time, you can have also flows of comments saying, you realize that half of the place is supposedly closed because of the COVID. And you can hear that in many restaurants, many accommodations, people complaining about breakfast super quick and cheap due to COVID-19. I didn't feel the hygiene measures, the air conditioning was not functioning well, and so on. So this is super important to keep that in mind. So quick takeaways before leaving the floor to those who are really in charge of operating their cities. European cities' reputation is recovering. They have recovered, but still today, we see this roller coaster mode. So it's very fragile, very sensitive. Residents are still supportive about tourism, but not at any condition. They will need to be really reassured about the type of travel that is going to be promoted, and especially with sustainability. Visitation is back in Europe. We saw that through the iconic attractions with sensors, foot traffic multiplied by 2, and a larger presence of tourists and a larger presence of international visitors. Visitor satisfaction declining in July, August, but rising again in September. And as I was saying, a close concern about sanitary safety conditions when they are back. Currently, the level of positivity is 52, which is okay for attractions. but it needs to be monitored, and especially in relation to the accommodation experiences and the restaurants experiences. So I all invite you to really connect to the dashboard that is available to members, that will be refreshed every 15 days. And happy to take any questions after the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivier. Very interesting. And also happy that there was also some good news, but also some really important pointers in how we move forward. So I'm going to wait with questions until after our next two speakers, which will be really short case presentations from two destinations on how they have applied data as part of their navigating and steering and preparing towards and for recovery. So first up is Jaume Mata, Head of Sustainable Tourism with Visit Valencia, who will give us some insights into their tourism information system for recovery. So Jaume, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Signe. Well, let me share. Can you see the presentation now?
No, not yet.
Not that yet. Okay. Well, I promised to take just 5 minutes to share how we're using our basic data system to monitor the demand, to check the supply, how it's evolving, the transport systems, etc. So we are combining different data which are available to us, some for free, some which are required to other sources, and we are using it first to help us to take some decisions, to see how it's what's going ahead, and also to deliver info to our stakeholders, which is this tourist information system, which is called in Spanish, is open to everybody. First, it was designed only for members, but after the COVID, we decided to open the system. So we call it SIT. Sorry, but the info is in Spanish because the data are in Spanish, but it's the system apps. So the pre-COVID system, we had data on tourist demand, on air transport, on accommodation, and some economic data about the accommodation. How was the profitability of the city? Because the sustainability was understood in economic terms. But as we decided to be smart and sustainable in different ways, we are amplifying the system, and now it's an ongoing project. But I will show you the basic data. As I said, we are using data from some providers like Forward Keys. Olivier, you know him, and he's helping us to get all these blocks. First, we have accommodation, we have the supply, the apartments, the average stay of tourists, the average price, occupation, in the traffic, the air traffic, the transport. We have where are they coming from, which airlines, how many seats are coming to Valencia by this transport, etc. And we showed you some screens like how it looks like. For instance, we can see which airports are sending their passengers to Valencia, where are they coming from, and you can see different evolution. For instance, in the app side, you can see the comparison between the year before and this year, the huge decrease, and you can compare the whole year, month per month, etc. You can see also how many airports are connected, which is the effective air capacity, which is allowing us to get tourists from different markets. And even from every airport, you can check how many flights, how many seats, how it's compared to other periods, etc. But as I said, with the COVID, we needed to amplify. We needed more data, more qualitative, and more dynamic data. So we are producing these market reports. We are using also this search for for our tickets to Valencia, and moreover, we are using this agenda to help our stakeholders to communicate what's going on in the city. The city is alive and safe, and you can come here. Some examples I have here: the market reports for different markets. Our main sources, which first market in Valencia is Italy, and the second is the Netherlands. So we needed to get more focus on the country. One of the reports we're using is the one which is qualitative. I mean, it's the source comes from Tourist Spain, from the Spanish Tourist Board. They've got all the offices in the different countries producing these reports. So we are taking this data and we are sending that to our members, to our hotels, to our companies, to see how the country is nowadays and how it looks in the next few weeks. Moreover, we have a comparison. How was the pre-COVID situation? How many bed nights produced, the increase, and now we have the health situation to check how it's going on, everything there in Italy, and some indicators like the mobility. We can check here the use of public transport, how many searches are on the web. So we are analyzing everything there, and and so we can forecast how is the interest on our city, which will produce when the situation becomes better. We will produce some tourists. So that's very short, very basic, but you can check our system in the web. It's open to everybody. I'm afraid it's only in Spanish, but it gives a clear idea of how you can get the reports. Now we are in special for air transport. We are producing these graphics. How is the search per market? Who is looking for Valencia? Who is looking for tickets to Valencia? You can see this chart, which depends on the weekend and the weekdays and the weekends. It changes a lot. For instance, here, as I said, in Italy, the case of when are they searching for Valencia? When are they increasing the interest in Valencia? How many days previously to the travel are they looking in Valencia, etc. And you can see how it has changed from February to September. The main markets, Italy, United Kingdom, Spain, in February, how it changed completely in May with the lockdown, and July there was a sort of recovery, and then September again was just quite low. Well, that's all from our side. It's as I say, a quick look at our system. You're invited to visit the platform, and feel free to ask anything you might ask me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaume. Very interesting. I'm going to quickly jump to our next speaker, and then we'll do a Q&A afterwards for all three speakers that we've had. So our third speaker in this first section is Henry-Biabaud, Director, Research and Insight with London and Partners and Chair of ECM Research and Statistics Knowledge Group, who's going to share how data and insights have become an integral part of London's navigation and preparation in this crisis. So Harry, please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. So the pandemic was unprecedented, as we all know, and we've been hearing from the other speakers that it's practically impossible to accurately predict exactly what was going to happen. But from London's perspective, we had just completed our business plan for the next year and a half. So very quickly we realized that actually that was no longer going to be viable, that we needed to actually have a very resilient strategy and to bring together the best data that we could, so that we can adjust and make the right decisions moving forward. So the first step we did was analyze what we could based on what information was already available. And for this, we really looked at previous episodes of this sort of scale. And that was on the first-hand pandemic, so things like SARS, but also where we had economic impacts, which were also going to clearly be ahead of us. So we looked at things like the impact of the recession in 2008. And we also realized that actually this was going to be quite a long-term challenge, and that most of the year ahead, if not into next year and beyond, is going to have this kind of on and off situation with regard to social distancing and quarantining. So actually that changed our approach to from having a fixed business plan to actually having a very flexible situation, but one which also not only monitored what was happening in London, but what was happening in international markets for the all-important international travellers. So what was the data that we needed? Well, actually, before we put that together, we made some very clear, quick principles and some assumptions which we decided to act on straight away. So first of all, we could see that from what we learned before, that the domestic market would recover first. And for us, this was a big change because our mission was all about international inbound travel. So we actually immediately got permission to change and pivot to promoting to the domestic market and to Londoners. And that was one very immediate change that came from the data. But then in terms of pulling together the right data, we needed to really bring together the best of what we could. So what were the best sources that were out there? How do we bring it together in the right way to enable us to make the right decisions? But importantly, how do we also support our industry, our partners, by giving them access to the best of what we have so that we can kind of work together to, first of all, stay resilient and then talk about recovery when the time was right. These were perhaps the main outputs. I just wanted to home in on these. So first of all, we got access to nearly 100 pieces of research and reports that they're kind of coming through every week, and we all see, and we went on all the webinars and got access to these reports. So we very quickly summarized what we were learning and what that meant for us, and then pulled them together into a summary, coronavirus insight summary.
Oh, it seems
just to try and isolate short term. Yeah.
Sorry, there are just some internet connection problems. It seems you're back. Good.
Okay, sorry. So this was really looking to understand exactly and summarize what we were learning. And we used this not only to make our own decisions, but to share it with all of our partners. So we've been running webinars on a weekly basis with different stakeholders, sharing the best insights and hopefully making collective decisions. It was very much like I'm sure many other cities have as well, which was making and helping us understand exactly what short-term decisions needed to be taken. So this is just some screenshots to show what things look like. So the summary report on the left, the one-page summaries of different reports, which are all color-coded by sector and by markets. And the triggers dashboard, things like what's the social distancing in different countries, what's happening with border controls, what are the restrictions on group sizes, which was very big for business tourism and conferences and events. Survey data, so what's people's attitudes to risk and how are people feeling about COVID in all of the different markets. What's happening with capacity, so hotels, venues, who's open, to what extent are they ready, how are attractions kind of re-emerging from the crisis. And of course, flight booking, searches, all the sorts of things that we've just heard from Valencia. So these are all feeding into a dashboard. We're reviewing it every week and then talking at a management committee level about exactly what does this mean for our activity and making sure that we respond straight away. Having to do it weekly is not fun, but we have to, because as we see, things are changing all the time. And then the last key part was actually we wanted to make sure we weren't just reporting what other people were telling us. So we've been doing a lot of research ourselves with Londoners and with Visit Britain, working across the UK to really understand how people are feeling and how do they feel about city centres. How do we bring them back with the right kind of activations and the right kind of campaigns? And this was really trying to understand their motivations, their barriers, and find the right people at the right time. So it led to some campaigns I'll just quickly show you. But the other thing I just wanted to mention was the power of the ECM community. So as Signe said, I've also a chair and I'm part of the ECM knowledge group on research and statistics. And this group have come together so many times over the last 6 months to share stories, data, and really understand how each of the cities are responding. We've got about 30 cities in the knowledge group, and we publish, as you can see, quite a wide range of reports on searches, booking, hotels, flights, through TCI, the sentiment of residents. You have, if you're an ECM member, access to all of this. So I just wanted to point that out because save yourself a lot of money, come and use these reports, get benchmarking data and help plan your recovery from that. So just a couple of examples of our activity. So once we've done this insights, we realized we needed to really inspire people to come together. So our campaigns are focused on Londoners at the moment. And we're doing things like really celebrating reopenings and trying to show and reassure people that actually the city is open for business and there's safe and responsible thing can be to enjoy it. It's called Because I'm a Londoner. And we're really getting people to share their own stories, both from a business and from an engagement point of view. And it's all across the city at the moment. From a data point of view, of course, we're monitoring engagements, we're monitoring the hashtag, the reach, etc. But this time we're also monitoring sentiment because we really wanted to understand, are people okay with this? You know, because we know there's fear and there's concerns about crowds. So are people okay with us saying, come and enjoy and experience London? And so far, so good. We've got a 4.8 score out of 5 for sentiment. So that's it really. I just wanted to share the kind of approach. The lessons from our point of view were, well, it's unprecedented stuff. So we had to rethink and kind of change our plans. We've set some clear principles to really look for long-term growth, but also trying to make the right short-term decisions, bring the best insights together and share it widely with your communities so that you've got one version of the truth and can kind of really collaborate on what you do with it. Make sure it's a two-way flow of these insights and just be very clear about what you'll do with every data point, because there's so much you can get, but just work on the ones that help you make a decision to go, right, we can now move with this and help manage the recovery and help your city start to grow again. So yeah, thank you very much from London and look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Harry. And we will go very quickly to the Q&A. I know I challenged our speakers to keep it very short today, and still there's always a lot to go through. So we're a little bit tight on time, but I would, if I could get all three speakers, Olivier, Jaume, and Harry on screen, then I would ask you a question that is about what key challenges have you either experienced, or in your case, Olivier, do you hear from your clients and from your partners? What are the key challenges in terms of making data an integral part of how we prepare for and how we plan for recovery, access to data in the organization and so on? So anyone wants to, I don't see any of you. Could you please video yourself and unmute? Okay, so I just got a message that everyone's on screen, so I think it's just frozen on my screen. Olivier, do you want to start?
Yeah, from what we hear is, I think there again the challenge is probably not about the availability of data. There are plenty of data. Many vendors like us, we do as much as we can, some sort of a goodwill, free data sharing and so on, and so it's more about what is the right data to share with whom, at what time. And from what we've felt is at the beginning of the crisis, there was a challenge about understanding the impact on the more, the reputation and image, where many destinations were really exposed in the media in a very bad way. So in terms of crisis management, there is a strong need to know exactly what are people are saying about me as a place. And then we are feeling today a resurgence of need to understand the new experience, because whereas it's just impossible to define what is the new normal tomorrow, today it's easy to understand what people are saying right now about their new experience. So as soon as data have become a true not a weapon, but a true fuel for tightening the relationship with the industry, and all our clients are within this solidarity kind of sentiment. So they want to share data, they want to get data with their members, with their stakeholders, with their private players. So they are happy to look at the tactical and keeping the pure forecast maybe a bit on hold, but because they know, again, it's very hard to make any sort of a of prediction. And also because we've heard that several times, but it's of course flight data are interesting, flight booking data are interesting, but because of this massive resurgence of domestic tourism, and we saw from many surveys that people are maybe going to use their car rather than taking, or train rather than taking a flight in the near future, then the data relevance about making some sort of trying to do a bit of forecasting is a bit, let's say, challenged by this new kind of traveling, which is maybe just short term, but it's, let's say, for the 6 to 12 months, we know people are going to travel by car, maybe mostly as soon as borders are reopening first.
Yeah. Okay. I know, Harry, that you have to leave in 1 minute. So do you want to do a very quick answer to this? And then I know you're checking out.
I'm good for a couple of minutes more, don't worry.
Okay.
What I would say for yes, the challenges are around people want some certainty, and we just can't provide them with that. We can just show them the best information and try and support decisions now. Targets are also a big challenge. So, in order to get our funding, we have to prove what we're going to achieve with it. And actually, in such a changed landscape, it's very hard to give people confidence that we're going to, reach this many visitors or bring in this many businesses to the city. So I think targets and forecasting are two of the biggest challenges that we're finding. And of course, tourism is one of the hardest hit sectors. So really trying to understand how to best support the communities to help them reopen in the right way and get the message out. And I think being able to make sure that we're resilient as our own business, but then our sectors also remain, it's probably the biggest challenge that we've had in our roles.
I think for you, Jaume, I'm going to jump to the question that we have actually in the chat, which is from Ola in Dublin, who's saying they've just started working with dashboarding on data. And so they're wondering how many of your team are working on this, and if you outsource the development of the dashboards.
Right. Well, as I said, the challenge here is to combine resources, because now you have to combine strategic and tactics. So it's not easy in these hard times. We have a team devoted for strategic and intel. Plus, we are using external resources like PowerKit or travel research, etc., and using all these sources which are available for either for free or you have to pay for them. For instance, ECM, all the reports from ECM are very useful, but you have to to know exactly what you want.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, it seems we don't actually have that many questions, so I'm going to take advantage of the fact that we're also a little bit short on time. And thank you all for sharing both your data and your experience. So thanks a lot. And we will quickly jump to the next. And I think actually we will just do a quick poll. Thank you, Olivier, Jaume, and Harry. So now we are going to go to our next speaker, and I've been looking very much forward to speaking to her, as she is preparing one of Europe's most popular tourism destinations for recovery. Corinne Menegaux, Managing Director of Paris Convention and Visitors Bureau, has agreed to share with us how she's preparing both the organization and the destination for recovery, and how she's expecting this very long period of no tourism to impact the local sentiment, future visitor experience, and the work of the DMO. Corinne, please welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So first off, what's it like in Paris right now?
Right now it's sunny, so it's cool. There's not so many people in the streets, so you can take all your time for visiting whatever you want. So that's pretty cool, finally. No, but kidding, it's very quiet, of course, because we don't have so many tourists actually, and this is a great period for us. So we're very disappointed that we don't have them back in the capital. But honestly, I think this was also the opportunity of having some people like residents taking over in the territory and being back in the monuments. So that was the great opportunity for them. But it's a little sad, of course, and we're waiting as all of the other cities for the tourists to come back and be sure that we're already ready for that, and we can welcome them, of course.
So in that period of waiting, has it given rise to any new conversations on tourism and tourism development in Paris, both sort of on a decision-making level and also with local residents, perhaps?
I think if we want, the real insight that we had is that it's been a very collective effort, and I think this period was really meaningful for everyone. So it was very important that we all work together, and probably that didn't happen before. So that was a huge opportunity of getting everyone around the table, you know, when sharing this expertise and experiences and everything. So I think this was also a huge opportunity also for us as an institution to be legitimate in our role and be the real link with the professionals and the state and the city and the residents. So it gives a huge opportunity of being more and more legitimate on that. So that was a huge insight. And for the other things, I think it's more, I would say it's more an acceleration of emerging trends that we had before. It's not a revolution. So we already talked about experience, about sustainability, about local and everything, and the thing with the residents and everything, acceptance. So I think it's just an acceleration of that.
So when you say that you're ready to welcome back the visitors to Paris, is that primarily the DMO, or is it also your impression or perhaps your data that the Parisians are ready to welcome back visitors?
It's, well, we're ready to welcome back the tourists. We've developed some programs with caring and be able to have sanitary measures and everything. So we developed a program which is the caring attitude in Paris. So all professionals have signed this program, and so they can just they commit themselves to respect the sanitary measures and everything. And we are really promoting this around everywhere. Just saying that you're taken in charge from your arrival in Paris during all the activities that you do, transportation activities, museums, whatever, events, business meetings and whatever. So we really are very cautious about that. And so for that, we're ready.
Yeah.
For the others, I would say we're not completely ready. We will as soon as we get some people, because as everyone, we've got quite a lot of hotels which are closed yet still, and which are not opening yet. And they will probably wait for a little longer because, you know, we had some recent announcements saying that we were closing again the bars and some of activities. And honestly, the borders are not really clearly open. So that's not so easy just to travel, even if the people want to. And I think it's a reality, like TCI research was saying at the beginning. I think we all want to travel, but it's not so easy at that time. So as soon as the numbers will be back, I think some activities could be reopening, and same for the hotels and restaurants and everything. But that was at the time. This is a little difficult for all professionals to take advantage of this situation, because they, of course, the local and the residents don't compensate the lack of tourism anyway. So they've got to find some new models. So we try to get with them and try to accompany them with that. But that's not so easy, and it will probably last quite a lot of time. So probably a few months, maybe years, before they get back to the normal that we had before. So we probably have to reinvent some things.
And yes, speaking of that, I think it's interesting to, like, how do you in your mind, or in your expectations and vision, what kind of Paris will, you know, be a new tomorrow? What will be different about Paris as we sort of come out, not just in terms of safety measures in the coming months, but in the longer term as well? What do you expect will change?
I think, as I was saying, it's not a revolution, because we had begun these changes just long before the COVID, so it existed before. But I think it will accelerate the sustainability thing, of course. So we already work on that a lot, and you know, our mayor of Paris is really keen on that and really committed to make Paris a city which is greener, with more parks, with bikes. We have 1,000 kilometers of cycling lanes, so that's amazing. And we've built probably half of them during the last 3 months. So that's the acceleration I was talking of. So I think we definitely will be in a turn of sustainability more and more. And the challenge will be probably to be able to work with the professionals of tourism, just to be able that they can take this turn, because it's not easy. It's not so easy. So they can't be at 100% of sustainability tomorrow, but step by step, probably we can do something with them. And that will be the challenge of the next few years, I think, on that. And probably the second thing, which is very important to me, and the venues are very concerned also with that, as well all professionals are. It's the link with the residents and the locals. I think it gives also the opportunity of being more involved in the city business, and be sure that the locals are accepting also the tourism industry and support them, but probably also work better with that. You know, the hotels that develop some local markets in their lobbies, for example, for the inhabitants, or the venues developing some, we've got a urban farm on the major halls of exhibition in Paris. And this urban farm is really working with the residents around the park. So these sorts of initiatives, I think it will be the future, probably.
So do you see in those sort of, both those possibilities and perspectives, but perhaps also in the challenges that you're saying, the industry, it's really not all that difficult, and you're trying to inspire them and sort of help them with how to rethink a little bit in these times of crisis. Are there any sort of new requirements to you as an organization in terms of your competencies and your visibility? You know, have you made any changes, or are you planning on changes in that regard?
We had to learn to work more efficiently with digital, which was not the case so much finally. So now we're really digital native, so we're very good at that. And so, you know, we're working a lot at home as everyone. So this is also a huge change of management. So probably one of the big challenges that we had was really the management of a team, because distance management is not exactly the same when you have everyone at the office. But I found it very interesting, in fact. So, and I think it was a huge opportunity of giving, you know, some sense to the work, what we do, and probably to enlarge the proximity that we have with each other. And I was never so close. I had never been so close to the teams that during this period. So this was a huge opportunity for that. And then probably some more competencies in terms of business. Probably we were very institutional and very promotional, marketing, things like that. And so I think we've got also to move around to a more business attitude with the professionals, and be able also to give them some answers and be able to help them with this situation actually.
Mm-hmm. And so in terms of well, what we talked about in the first section of the webinar, data and using insights is sort of an integral part. How have you approached this? And have you also, as I was asking in the poll, have you also done future scenarios and so on for Paris and for your work in the DMO?
Yeah, of course, we do a lot of scenarios, but I was saying stop the scenarios because anyway, we don't know anything. So we can't do anything and we can't predict anything. But of course, data is really key. We've always been quite important, we always developed quite a lot of things with data because we've got a service which is completely dedicated to that. But I think the new thing that we were able to put in place thanks to this crisis was to have a follow-up of the data, because the data doesn't mean anything if you take them just at what moment. So the interesting thing with the data is to follow them month by month or year by year, whatever, but to have a real barometer of activity so you can measure what the trends are. It's not so much the numbers, but it's the trends that are interesting. And so we created 4 barometers on mice, business, on leisures, on the state of the offer actually in Paris and things like that. And so we follow up, we have a follow-up every month and everything on all the markets. And that gives us some predictive data that can help to predict the activity in the few months that are coming, and probably help also the professionals just to adapt also their activity to that, because we know that we won't be back on a number of tourists which is acceptable in the next few months. So that helps also them to adapt their activity to that and be taking the right decision for that.
All right. Okay, well, thank you so much, Corinne. We're already out on time, but this was very interesting to hear both how you're working with data, but I think also that sustainability, for example, is almost accelerated or is accelerating as a priority with you. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective.
Thanks.
All right, and to everyone else, thank you also for tuning in and staying tuned in, even though we went a little bit over time. As you know, after you close down the meeting or close down the webinar, there's a short evaluation. So if you have the time, we would be very much appreciating your answers and your input for this series. And so, yes, I hope you had a good flexing and training of your muscles for recovery, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.